Fourth graders, you are going to make coil pots for your clay project. Coil pots are free-form art, just like there are free-form shapes or organic shapes. You are going to organically or without rules make a clay vessel with coils. Now, what is a coil? A coil is something that is a piece of clay that's rolled into the shape of a snake, a thin cord, rope-like shape. When you make your coil pot, you can do anything. There are no rules. You can make your coil pot be the same width all the way around like a mug. You can make it go in and out more like a juice glass or something. You can make your coil pot have all sorts of unique designs by arranging the coils and folding the coils in any shape. You can do it in any shape. You can do dots, you can do spirals, you can do zigzags, you can do ropes. You just have to tell the coil what to do. Once you've made your coil pot, we are going to glaze them. Glaze is the paint that's especially made for clay and that has to be put back in the kiln so that it gets nice and shiny. And check out these images. It shows how the glaze only enhances the different coils that were made and the textures. I want you to be creative and have fun. There's only one rule, and that is that you have to start with a certain type of vase. But be very creative and have fun. One thing that you have to keep in mind is the shape of your coil pot. You don't want your shape to go against gravity. And remember, gravity is that thing that pulls us down to earth. So you don't want your pot to have any wide edges like a bowl where they would fall down, or anything that's too flat that would cave in. Good shapes are straight up and down or slightly diagonal or a little bit rounded. So, what will you create? Fourth graders, to begin making your coil pot, I'm going to give you a lump of clay that's about the size of an orange. You need to tear off a good hunk of it to make the bottom part, the part that your coil pot will go on top of. So you're going to tear a hunk off and you're going to just pinch it in between your hands. Not with fingers, 2 fingers, but with your palm and your flat fingers. You're just going to kind of rotate that around in your hand. And what you're doing here is you're making a slab of clay. A slab of clay is clay that is flat like a pancake. You want it to be whatever shape you want. Maybe you need to think about the shape you want your coil pot. Do you want it to be a rectangular coil pot, a square, a triangle, a circle? My suggestion is that you go with a circle coil pot because then you won't have the corners of a square to deal with. Okay? So you're going to get the shape big enough that you want. Your clay needs to be at least as big as your hand or bigger. And you need to make sure the clay is no thinner than your finger or no thinner than the size of a pencil. And this is about right. If there's any bumps in it, you can just with your finger kind of rub those out. At no point should you ever push your clay down into the mat because then it will stick to the mat. All right, now I've got my clay for my base all flat into a slab, and I'm going to, with a pointy tool, I'm going to draw in the shape of the base that I want. I'm going to go with a circle, and I'm just going to kind of drag my tool through the clay to get the shape that I'm looking for. Now, if I look at it, is that really the shape that I want? Maybe not, so you can just erase it because you didn't push all the way through and redraw the shape that you want. Alright, once you're happy with the general shape, you're going to take the same tool or another tool, doesn't matter what kind, and you're going to cut all the way down to the bottom of your mat to cut away that piece. Try to stay inside that line that you drew. Hold your tool up and down because if you hold it at an angle, then what you end up with is your clay cut away at an angle. And we want it to be this exact shape, so I'm going to hold my tool up and down. Now once you have it cut out, you can spend a moment pressing it. Make sure you can still pick it up off the mat and smooth out the edge with your finger just by wiping around it so that it's not such a sharp edge. Sharp, I mean sharp not as in like a blade. It's not going to cut you, but you want it to look rounded rather than pointy. Okay. Now, if we look at this piece of clay, I see lots of little bobbles on it. Those bobbles will stay there and they won't go away. And if you're okay with that, then you can leave it like that. But if you want your clay to be smoother, take some sort of tool or your finger and smooth it out. Now, I could see myself spending many, many minutes, even up to an hour, smoothing out this clay. That's not a good idea for several reasons. First reason is that I've got other stuff to do. And if an hour wasted on just smoothing out this base is not a wise use of my time. The second reason is every time that you rub your tool against it to make it smooth, you're kind of pushing the clay out and you're kind of getting rid of some of the clay in different areas. So this is the base of my clay, and I will build on top of this as I go along, but I don't need it in the center of my mat, so I'm going to actually stick it off to the side. With the rest of my clay, I want to tear up a piece of clay that just kind of fits inside my hand. It doesn't have to be too big or anything. And I want to just, in my hand, kind of squeeze it into more of an oval shape rather than a circle. Give it a few rubs in between my fingers, but then I want to do the rest of it on my mat. Now what I'm doing is I'm making a coil. A coil is just like making a snake, which I'm sure you've done with clay before. So you're just going to roll it back and forth on your mat to make a thin snake. To do that, you start with your fingers, your hands together, and your fingers together. If you spread them out, you'll end up with different indents where your fingers were, an indent here and here. But if you keep them together, you can press with even pressure. You're going to start with your coil and your hands together, and you're just going to roll back and forth in between your hands. You don't want to make too long of movements. And then you're going to spread your fingers apart. Start together, spread apart. Start together, spread apart. And as you're doing it, you will feel that different parts of the clay are thicker while different parts are thinner. And you want your coil to be about the same thickness. So if it gets thicker in one area, just spend time rubbing on that area to thin it out. Together and apart, together and apart. I want my clay to be the same thickness. Now, I'm noticing that my clay is starting to look more square-shaped. And to avoid that square shape, all that you need to do is just kind of twist your clay, and that helps to round it back out, and give it a good roll again, and that will make it round again. My coil is getting too long, so I'm going to take the rest of that away so that I stay on my mat and don't get the table dirty. Now, you'll know that your coil is about the right thickness when it looks to be the thickness of a finger or the thickness of a marker, no smaller than the thickness of a pencil. Does that look about right? It's actually a little bit bigger than a pencil, so I'm on track. If I were to roll it and it were to get so thin, something thin like this, which is a lot thinner than a pencil, is going to just break and crack, and I don't want that. I want my clay to be the thickness of a pencil or a thickness of a finger, no bigger than the thickness of a marker. For your very first one, after you've cut out your base, you're going to put one coil of clay around the outside edge. This is a thing that you don't have a choice on. And it's a good practice because we need to practice our score, our slip, our stick, and our smooth. So with some sort of tool, it doesn't matter. You can use a scratchy tool. You could use a fork. You're going to make little scratches all the way around the edge. You don't want to go too far in because then you'll end up with marks inside that you'll see in the middle of your pot. You can use any kind of tool you can find that has scratchies on it, bumps in it to make all of your different scoring. This score you have to do on the outside and on your coil as well. The reason we make this is so that it acts like Velcro. We want our clay to stick together, and without this Velcro, it will fall apart. Okay, so that's score, and that's like the Velcro. Then you need slip. Now slip is typically water mixed with clay, and it kind of forms this like really creamy, almost yogurty clay stuff, but we're just going to use water. And it acts like the glue. So you're going to take the water and you're going to put it on top of all of those score marks that you made. You don't want to have it drippy wet. You don't want the clay to be too drippy wet and soft, but just enough so that it looks a little bit shiny. Okay, once you have it all shiny, you're going to pick up the coil and you're just going to set it around the edge of your base, making sure that those score lines, that Velcro line, sticks together, and you go around. Now, I see that my coil will overlap on itself. That is something that you can choose to keep and just keep making your coil go around and around and around and around, and then that will create lots of levels. Or you can choose to cut your coil off where they meet and put this extra coil there, and then you can spend time smoothing these out. Now, you have to have one flat coil on your base to begin. With this flat coil, I want you to, with a tool, smooth the inside. Leave it on your table, but if I pick it up, you can see it better. So you're going to take, with a tool, smooth out these insides. So we've got score, slip, and then we stuck it, and now we're smoothing it. This is not going to be very pretty yet, but it's the first steps. Once you kind of go in a downward motion, then you can go to a side-to-side motion to get it all nice and smooth so that there's no weird marks. You can use any tool that you can find. Now, when you're using tools, I only want you to have a maximum of 3 tools at your table. That way we can all share. You can have just 1 or 2, but no more than 3. Okay, I want to also smooth out this outside edge. See how there's a difference here? I'm going to smooth that out. This creates a secure base for the rest of your coil pot to be made on. All right, now I've got a tiny little dish and I'm ready to build the rest of my coils. You can build coils in any way. I suggest taking your hunk of clay and rolling out a whole long coil, and then you can design it from there. So let me get a few coils made, and this is what I suggest you do too. Now that I've got a whole bunch of coils rolled out, I can start building my clay pot. You always have to score and slip and stick, and then if you want to, you can smooth. So for my first coil, I'm just going to wrap it around and make it go taller. So I need to score my clay. I want a long coil for this. so that it wraps around a few times. Score the coil. Put some water on it. The glue. Take the score parts and stick them together, kind of giving it a firm press, and wrap it around. All right, now that I'm wrapped around, this part of the coil is going to go on top of an area that's not scored. So I need to take a step back and score this coil. Slip it. And wrap the coil right on top. Oh, it's still not long enough, so I need to do more scoring and slipping. Firm press down. And at this point, if you want to, you can take a tool and smooth the inside. The way that you do that is you hold your hand on the outside, and with a tool, you can just smooth the inside. This is a choice you can make. You do not have to do this because it should stick together because the clay is the same consistency right now. None of it's dried out. So that technique just creates these layers of coils, which is pretty cool. You can do other techniques too. With the coils, perhaps you want to roll it into a shape like a spiral. So you're just going to take the coil that you made and roll it up on itself. I put a little bit of slip on it so that it sticks together, but I didn't score it because I didn't want those marks on it. Alright, there's one of my spirals that I want, and I'm going to just cut off the end, spend some time smoothing this out. Maybe I'll make a couple coils, a couple spiral coils that are all about the same size. This coil is a little bit small, so I can borrow a little bit of a coil from another rope, stick them together. Roll it up until I think it's the right size. Tear off the other and just make a pile of my scraps that I don't need and that aren't in coil shape yet. Alright, with these spirals, I'm going to just stick them onto the base of my pot. I want to pick the side that I want on the outside. With these coils, I have to pick which side I want on the outside. And whichever side is the outside, the part that I will see, I'm going to leave like that. But to ensure that the coil won't fall apart and break, I need to take a tool and smooth out the part that's going to be on the inside of my coil pot. Now that I've got my coils all smoothed out and I've decided which side is the edge and which side's the inside, I need to stick them somewhere. So I have to decide where are they going to stick. Is it going to look best to stick it like this or like this? Which way? And then I'm going to score the area that will be touching this. Scratch into it, make some marks for the Velcro, scratch my base as well, put a little bit of slip on both of those, stick it together, and do that for each one. Once I have my coils stuck on, I need to go back and smooth out on the inside where they connect. Now, my coil pot, I've got low areas and high areas. So with a regular coil, I need to fill this in somehow. You could make a whole roll of spirals and then they would connect. Or you can go in, score and slip some coils, and put them inside these cracks. to go back and smooth out the inside. Smooth out where they connect to the coils. I noticed that there is this little hole here where the end of my wraparound coil and the end of this coil that attaches to the spirals is. And I want to fill that. You can choose to leave that a little bit empty because it's small, but maybe I want to fill that with just a little ball. So I'm going to roll a ball of clay. If you want it to be circular shape and stick it in, then you can just stick it in as a circular shape. If you want it to stick out, you could roll your ball of clay and then kind of pinch the edges to make more of a teardrop shape. I'm going to slip inside of there and slip around here, just some water, and stick the shape inside of that hole, and then on the inside of the vessel, smooth it out. Some other techniques are you could take your coil and you could wrap it around while scoring and slipping in a wavy pattern. All that you do is you take your coil and you bump it into a wavy pattern. And you can just set it there, but then when the areas that you want to connect, you score and slip them and smooth them one by one. Now I need to fill in these areas, and so maybe I take some clay and I make a spiral and stick in there. I could make just a circle, slip the way around it, stick it in, and on the inside, smooth it. Still leave some gaps and I could fill that in.